Okay, so we're going to jump into that. So our next topic is merging with AI. Did you want to go, George?
No, I was just thinking of maybe questions from at some point.
Yeah, we'll hopefully in the next 15 minutes we'll have time for a question or two. So in the future, Bostrom envisions that most minds will be digital, which may be AI or uploaded human minds, which will have greater computational power, will live longer, and they'll be faster thinking. Thus, humans uploaded to digital minds will be able to operate at much higher levels and demand higher levels of income. Kurzweil envisions the human future in the 2040s that he calls a singularity, when nanotechnology will expand our brains with virtual neurons in the cloud, merging us with AI and expanding our intelligence and consciousness through millions of times the computational power biology gave us. So Bob, what Bostrom and Kurzweil predict, it sounds like pretty good stuff. So what problems do you imagine as we merge with AI, if we merge AI with human brains through the brain-computer interfaces that they predict sometime in the 2030s or 2040s? And will computing power actually accelerate exponentially, as Kurzweil argues, along the lines of Moore's law?
You know, I don't know. I just know now I can only think one thought at a time. I don't know what happens if I get a neural implant and they try to put 50 ideas in my brain. I don't know if I could handle it that. But even more seriously, in the 1990s, there was something called the Brain Project. And the Brain Project was going to try to map the human brain to a digital equivalent. It was a total failure. There are aspects of us, our spiritual assets, our creativity, our understanding, our idea of even love and compassion, which are not algorithmic. They cannot be explained by an algorithm, by a computer program. If you tried to upload yourself into a computer, you would miss these non-algorithmic processes, and I think you would be a very, very boring person with just the algorithmic aspects of it. So no, I don't think that is going to happen. Notice, again, computers made out of meat. If you're a materialist, you got to believe that. You got to believe we're materialists made out of meat. But nevertheless, just like people of faith look at immortality, this is their answer to immortality. So it turns out in a lot of religions, there's kind of parallels to this sort of thing. There is, by the way, an AI church. If you go to AI church, you can actually look at it. It's in California. It's for real, and really, really interesting. You know what their scripture is written by? ChatGPT. Yeah.
Oh, their scriptures are written by ChatGPT.
They admit it on the website. It's written by ChatGPT. So.
It looks like we have a question by our illustrious guest and speaker, I guess, during this conference, Jim Tour. Hey, Jim.
Hi. So you know, I've long thought, because I've been a professor for 35 years, and I teach the same way that Aristotle taught. There's in a toga, right? there's
that long ago, Jim.
Students in a room, and I'm lecturing, and they're taking notes, and it's all the same. And I've often wondered, why can't we just have them come in, pay $100,000, and boom, there's a download, wireless download, and they go off, and that's it. So, you know, this is always what I've wondered, when will we be able to do that? But my question is really to Bill. You said something very quickly, and it piqued my interest, that you said that if you get to the quantum mechanical level, then this idea of the spiritual becomes a lot more accessible. And I'm not disagreeing. I just find that interesting, because there are phenomena at that level that are really quite interesting, where an electron can be in multiple places at any one time. It's just more here than there, and could you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I deal with this in a book that I titled Being as Communion, Metaphysics of Information, but the idea is, a lot of, I think, these days in quantum mechanics, a lot seems to go deterministic in terms of a multi-world, multi-universe, so that you run the Schrodinger equation and it's conceived as deterministic. But you know, in terms of your actual experimental practice, you're always using probabilities. So it seems that there are irreducibly probabilistic things happening at the quantum level. So is there some sort of causality behind that? Some people would say, well, there's no causality. It's just, it's just that it's following probability distributions. But it seems to me that is a point of nexus where a spiritual reality can, if you will, collapse the wave functions in certain ways. This is a very unpopular view among materialists, obviously. But it seems that quantum mechanics allows for an informationally porous universe in a way that a deterministic world, purely deterministic world wouldn't. So it's, God or human spirit or whatnot can interact at that level. So for me, a model of the mind is much more that of the mind is a typewriter and there's a typist, or it's a radio and there's a signal that's coming in. The radio doesn't account for the symphony that you're hearing. There's an information source that's interacting there. And so likewise, the brain then is this kind of receiver for for the mind, and this is even from a biblical perspective. The body is a garment. The soul is something that's much more fundamental. So that's the sort of picture that I go with. I find it compelling. I don't think you can. The science can go either way because, in a sense, it pushes it to a metaphysical level. But that's so that's a way I could see an interaction taking place. And it raises also interesting questions. You've got, there's a neuroscientist, John Lorber, and I remember reading this in Science back in the early 1980s, where he would look at hydrocephalics, and whereas our cortex is usually a few centimeters thick, he had one student, 126 IQ, top math students, with a cortex of just 1 or 2 millimeters. So virtually no brain. And that was, I think, the title of the article, somebody who's intelligent with no brain. So how is it that you can have that level of intelligence? And I remember talking to people and they said, well, there's just tremendous redundancy in the brain. Well, if you've got that sort of redundancy, then give us much smaller heads and then we can pass through the birth canal much more easily and we're not going to kill, from a natural selection point of view, if you can get all that intelligence for a lot less brain, then do it, So that was, so you've got these anomalies which suggest that, Louis Pasteur had a cerebral accident, a stroke, and when his brain was examined after his death, half of his brain was atrophied. So how do you account for something like that? So it seems that it's very convenient from a materialistic perspective to push the computationalism, push for some sort of neuroscientific reductionism. But it seems that there's evidence that would at least open this possibility of a porous universe, a mind that is tied to the body. It's, I'm not sure I'd go with a substance dualism, certainly in a Cartesian sense, but that there's a reality that you simply cannot reduce, and obviously when we read
I'm a hylomorphic dualist.
Okay,
so,
so
I'll go with the Aristotelian perspective. But anyway, Bill, because I have a couple more questions for you guys, and we have some people in the audience, so just give us a couple more questions, and then we'll take your audience questions. So George, and then I want to get the Ship of Theseus, and have each of you maybe want to say something about that. You talked about how creativity is the effect of minds in the image of the creator. This is intrinsic to the nature of being a human. Kurzweil proposes that eventually exact copies of the human brain can be created segment by segment, the little neurons of each, and so, which means that this computerized replica of your brain will be you too, since it will have all of your experiences and memories. Would you two actually be you?
No. And Amy Kurzweil, Ray's a good friend of mine, and his ideas can't be caricatured, really. I mean, his new book, The Singularity is Nearer, is the best explanation of artificial intelligence I've seen, and it actually allows you to dismiss it in its grander claims. And his daughter is very amusing about all these issues. And Amy Kurzweil is his daughter, and she's going to be appearing tomorrow. and she'll give you a fascinating insight into the Kurzweil family and their debates on this subject, and the subject of reviving Ray's father and all obstacles it incurred. I mean, it's Ray got the singularity, and he that was his flag, and he raised it. But it's a mistake to reduce his views to that cartoon.
So Kurt, so this is for the three of you, and we have about 5 minutes before we're going to give you guys, we'll give you guys a chance. Okay, so Kurzweil relates the ancient Greek thought experiment called the Ship of Theseus. It's a wooden ship's planks are slowly replaced one by one. What would happen if eventually all the planks were replaced until none of the original planks were there? Is it still the same ship? And what if you were to store the old planks in a warehouse and rebuild the ship from all the original planks? Is it the one that continuously existed with only incremental changes? That is the Ship of Theseus, or it's the one that was reformed from the original parts, which was the Ship of Theseus. So Kurzweil is thinking that, well, it's similar to that, in that if you were to change everything neuronally, right, if you were to substitute those, you would get the same thing.
Yeah. Well, he thinks we can live forever, possibly, and through this process, which changes the nature of the human being and the dimensions of the human being. I mean, death is an essential part of life, and as we experience it, and it actually lends resonance and significance to our activities. So I think we're not the Ship of Theseus.
We're not the Ship of Theseus. Bob.
Yeah. When you die, you're alive, and then you're dead.
Right.
And there's this quick transition. And what's the difference between being alive and dead? You're chemically the same. All of your neurons are the same. All of your cells are the same. I don't know. Something happens there. I will say that, the Planck thing, this is a philosophical question.
It's a philosophical question,
But in reality, there's this myth, we talked about this a little bit, that every cell in your body is replaced every 7 years. Well, I looked up, and this is what I looked up on ChatGPT while we were talking. So this is the greatest authority. So it actually says that most neurons in the cerebral cortex, the part involved in higher cognitive functions like thinking and memory, are not replaced after birth. So those neurons that you get during birth are not replaced like the rest of your body. And the other place I heard, the other cells that never die and never replaced, fat cells.
Oh.
So that's a bummer. Okay.
That's a terrible thing.
Yeah,
so Bill,
terrible.
Bill, just a couple minutes, and then we'll go to our questions.
Right. So I think the real issue here is multiple realizability. So it's interesting. I mean, there's an implicit assumption there with these planks that they're interchangeable, so that you can realize the same ship with a different set of planks. But what happens when you go to the neuronal level, for instance, or where you have quantum effects, where there's, by manipulating, as you do in a double slit experiment, you actually change the way the whole system works. So this sort of Planck analogy doesn't seem to me to hold at the neuronal level, where the rubber is going to meet the road, where you're going to have to actually do the simulation. So I think he misses the point there. And I think another thing, actually, just to bring into this discussion, is the notion of transposition. It's something that C.S. Lewis pointed to. But you can take the same chess algorithm and run it on a much faster machine, and it's going to be much stronger than on a. It's the same idea, but it's implemented in different ways. And the Christian view of resurrection is that we're going to be, we're going to have a new set of planks, but it's also going to be in a new environment with a new physics, or ultra physics or something. So it's not going to be subject to the same constraints that we are now. I would be frankly worried if I were Kurzweil, to upload myself in a digital system where you could have a meteor shower, an EMP or something, and you're gone.